This video is called the Concord Suite Demo Part 2. The Concord Suite is a software package. It gives you a complete design and processing software package for image bubble forms that are scanned using an image or page scanner. The Concord Suite includes the Concord Forms Design program and the Remark Office OMR scanning program. In the first video, we showed you how to use the Concord Forms Design program to design a form. In this video, we will show you how to scan the forms and get some results using the Remark Office OMR program that is the other half of the Concord Suite. So this is the form that we designed in the first video with a couple of additions. I want to talk about those additions here at the top of the form. We did discuss the dollar signs with the yellow highlight. This is a data merge field and it will be filled in when the forms are printed with a session ID number, and you will see that when we scan the forms. The purple box here is telling the software to scan this field. The Remark Office OMR software has the ability to scan machine-generated text, and that is what this purple box is. The other box I want to talk about is down at the bottom. We have a comments area on this form, but there's also this blue box, and I'm going to slide it out here just so you can see it. It sits on top of it. This box tells the form that this is an image region and should also be scanned by the software. The comments, the handwritten comments, will be separated from the full image into a smaller file, and those smaller pictures of the comments can be assembled into a report, and you will see that. I'm going to move this box back here a little bit into place. So now that we have our form designed, we need to switch gears and think about scanning the form. So we need to create a scan template that tells the second half of the Concord Suite, the Remark Office OMR software, how to scan the form. So at this point, we're just about ready to create our scan template. We have added our extra fields like our image region here and our OCR region here. So now we go up to the scanning menu, and the scanning menu has 4 options that are meant to be used in the order that you see them on the menu. The last 2 options, Launch Template Editor and Scan Forms, these launch parts or modules of the Remark Office OMR software. But the first one is Set Up Order of Output Fields. This window allows you to change the order, so no matter how the fields are laid out on your form, you can change the order. And if I wanted to do that, let's say I wanted to move this session ID field here, that's my OCR field. I wanted to move it down below date. I could just click on it and drag it into position. So it allows you to set up the order of the output fields. This can be very important if you're trying to match an existing database with your output data. I don't really want to make any changes here, so I'm just going to click Cancel. Okay, and then the second option on the scanning menu is actually creating the scan template. So this is going to create a different file, and that file has an OMR extension, and that is because the Remark Office OMR template files have that OMR extension. So we're going to go ahead and save this, and it tells me that the file was created. So that is how quickly and easily that file gets created, and this is where we integrate the Concord software with the Remark software. That file gets created for you with just that one couple of clicks. Okay, that file is not quite complete. There's one thing we have to do to it. It's a simple procedure, and we're going to click on the third option, and we're going to launch the Remark Office Template Editor to do that. So here you can see up on the title bar, you can see we're in the Remark Office OMR Template Editor, and it's telling you that it loaded the template that we just created. Okay, we left the base name the same, and if you do that, then when you select that Launch Template Editor, it will load the template, and you can see that it's loaded by the name here. Also, you can see our fields right here. So what should be here, and the thing that we have to do, is to scan in a blank copy of our form to make sure that the fields line up. So the way you do that is very simple. Click on Tools and Reset Images, and it pops up this window. We're going to click Scan and then begin scanning. I have a blank copy of our form loaded into my scanner, so I'm going to click here and it should scan that page. So here's the page that we just scanned, and you can see that it is a blank copy of our form, which is what we're looking for. If you have the form filled out here, everything will seem to work correctly, but the forms will not scan properly. So make sure that this is a blank or unfilled out copy of your form. So we click OK, and this is what we get. The auto alignment procedure, all of these fields should be green. This one is red. So the auto alignment procedure is going to try to align that field for us. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. We're going to click OK here, and it's telling me that it didn't work. Okay. So how do we fix this field? Well, it's very simple. All we need to do is make sure that this box here, this red box, covers the bubbles that it's supposed to scan, but doesn't touch anything else. And you can see here it's touching the box, and that's what's causing this problem. So I'm going to slide it over here so that it doesn't touch anything here, and it should turn green, which it does. Okay. We're also illustrating something here. See this dark box here, and then over here on the group ID there's no box. When actually I'm going to go back to Concord, and if you look right here on the group ID, there is a very light box and a very dark box over here on the date. We're doing this on purpose to illustrate something. The reason we use wide boxes with light shading or with a very light color is so that when you scan them, they drop away. And when they drop away, that makes the scanning process work a lot better. So over here, this dark box, and I'm going to go back to the template editor, did not drop away. In fact, when it scanned in a black and white mode, which is the way you should scan your forms, it created a very dark box, and you can see it sort of interfered a little bit with the date. Now this will scan okay, but it would have worked better if it was like this group ID where the box dropped away completely when you scanned it. So that is the illustration there. But here, what we have are our OCR field up here. You can change and move these around just a little bit. I'm just going to adjust that a little bit, change the size. But then we have our 3 bubble fields, and they're all green, so we know they're good. And then our comments area, the image region down here is blue, and it's covering the comments area. Now the reason we put that outside of the box is because people have a tendency to write outside the box. So if you want to catch everything people write, sometimes you go a little outside the box with your image region. Okay, because all you're going to get from this is a picture, so you want to include the entire box plus a little bit outside. So now that we've done this, our template is complete and correct, and we are ready to scan forms at this point. So I'm going to click on the save to disk here so that we save our easyform.omr scan template, and then I'm going to close the software. So that closes the first module of the Remark Office software, and the second module of the Remark Office software we can open. You can either open it from the start menu the way you would any other software like this, or you can open the data center from our scanning menu here that says Scan Forms, and that's going to open the Remark Office OMR data center. And I'm loading a few forms in the scanner just so that we can scan them here, but you can see up at the top, just so you don't get confused, I refer you to this title bar a lot because now you're in the Remark Office OMR data center. This is the second module of the Remark Office software, and this is where we actually scan forms. And what it's telling us here is that we've loaded that template so we know what form to scan. And the reason this is untitled here is because this would be the name of the data file that we save the data in, and we don't have any data yet. So you can see that the data grid is just like a spreadsheet, and here for each form we scan we'll get a row of data, and then these are our data fields, and you can see they're the same ones you've been seeing all along: session ID, group ID, date, and then our 15 questions, and then our comments. Okay, so the session ID is that OCR field. So here what we should appear are the OCR fields that we have printed on the form. So to scan forms, it's very simple. We just click on Quick Scan here because we're going to be talking directly to our scanner. So we're going to click on Quick Scan here, and the software will begin scanning. And as it does that, you can see that the data grid becomes populated with data. I think we have about 14 or 15 forms here. You can also notice that some of the cells have different colors in them and different words. What is happening here is that the software is marking problems that it's finding. And of course, there are a lot of problems in my group of forms because I want to illustrate some of those problems. Normally, you probably wouldn't get quite this many in this small a grouping. So if I wanted to continue scanning pages, I would reload my scanner hopper with forms, and I would say yes, but we're going to click no here. And the first thing I always do once I have some data is to save that data. So I click on our Save Data tool up here, and it's going to save some data. I'm going to put it here, and I'm going to change this actually back to the Remark extended. This is the Remark native data file type, and I always save the data first. We're going to talk about save as type here in just a moment, but right now we're just going to call this easy form test data. Okay, so now we've saved our file, and you can see that up here. Once again, we're still in the Remark Office OMR data center. We have our easyform.omr scan template loaded, and the scan template tells the software what the format of the data, what the forms look like, and all of that information. And then now that we've saved our data, we have our easyform test data.rmx file. That is our actual data file. Okay, now you can see all these colors down here. They all have meanings. There are 4 colors on the screen, and if I slide down here on the left side of my screen, scroll down, I can see the exceptions legend and then the colors that you're seeing on the screen. Now, the most important one, or the most problematic one, are the red errors, and that is a recognition error. Okay, so those are the ones I usually address first, and then I move on to the yellow errors, which are blank or partially filled in responses, and then multiple mark errors are the green ones. Now the blue one is just indicating to you that this is an OCR region. Okay, now so let's look at this. When you look at this grid, one of the great things about the Remark Office software is that if you click on any cell in the grid, the software shows you down here in the image viewer the actual question on the actual form that was scanned. So this is how we can very quickly, without having to flip through the forms, we can correct errors. So when I look at these red boxes down here, this whole line of red boxes, what I can see is this doesn't look like my form at all. This is actually a completely wrong form. So I've scanned an incorrect form. So what I'm going to do is right click here and then just delete this entire row because that was a bad form. Now usually when you see a whole row of yellow like this, what you scanned is a blank form, and if I click on these cells, I can also, across the page, I can quickly see that I've scanned a completely blank form. So I would also delete that row. Okay, so what we're doing here is cleaning up our data so that we have the cleanest data set that we can get. So now let's talk about the yellows. The yellows mean that the fields weren't filled in. And if this is a problem where you absolutely have to have an ID number, you could delete this row, but if it's an evaluation or a survey, often this information isn't as important. The answers are what's more important, so you could leave this here. Now down here, what we have is a date, once again, that was not filled out, so there's not much you can do here. Down here with the yellow ones, what we have is a couple of the digits that didn't get filled out, or got filled out with such a small mark that the software missed one of the zeros. It caught most of it, 1, 2, and then the last 0, but it missed this one. So what we can do here is just type this in, 1200, to complete it, because we can tell what they marked and we can see what they wrote here. Same thing over here. This film was not filled out very well, and we do this to show you that there are cases where if you don't put a big enough mark, the software won't pick it up. It can pick up most of it, but not always all of it. And here we have 09. That's what we're missing. So we're going to type in 0913 and then 09 again and finish that up. So now we've cleaned up our data a little bit more. I'm going to click on all the yellows first. We can see that they didn't fill in this question, so that there's nothing we can do here. Same thing here, same thing here, same thing here. They just didn't fill them out at all. So there's not much you can do with those, but let's talk about these mult questions. And this is what you'll see a lot. Here they filled in two answers almost identically, even though they just X'd it. They filled in two answers, and so we wouldn't change this because we have no idea what they meant here. Usually they mean something in the middle, which you can't show them. Here, same thing. Two bubbles filled out, pretty close. I wouldn't change that. But here, you can see that what they did was fill this out with probably a pen, put a big X through it, and meant this to be their answer. So we can change that. We can clean up the data and make this data set as clean as possible. I'm just going to click through these here. There's two marks identical. I'm not changing that. Here's this other situation where they've X'd through a bubble. Now, the software actually, Remark Office actually has a feature where it'll look for this big mark and then choose the other one if there's only one other mark. I have that feature turned off so I can illustrate the image viewer. Here, once again, two marks, two bubbles. I wouldn't change that, but here I would change this one. So what we're doing is getting ourselves the cleanest data set we can. Okay, and then we have one over here where they've written 091209, but here they filled in two bubbles. That's why we're getting the multiple mark, but we can once again type this in as 091209. Okay, so now that we've cleaned up our data set, I'm just going to save it again. And we now have as clean a data set as we can create. Now, you do have control over what you want here. Mult is one of the possibilities. You would set that in the scan template file if you want something else. If you want it to be blank, but it'll turn green. Of course, the green cells and the yellow cells, if you export the data, those colors do not export. But what you have for multiple marks is completely up to you. Okay, so now that we have our data set, there's a couple things we can do with our data set. The first one is we can export the data to other software, and it's just as easy as clicking on File, Save Data As, and selecting in our Save As type a different data file type. So I'm going to select, we have Access Database files, we have Oracle files, we have Excel files, SPSS, a number of different kinds of files, the standard comma separated value, which almost any database program will import for you. Lots of other choices of native data file types, and you can even set up an ODBC real-time connection if you want. That usually takes an IT person to do. I'm going to go up here and just create a Excel spreadsheet file. Okay, so now it's going to save the data as an actual XLSX file, and it's now done that. Okay, so, and it shows you that up here that you have saved as a an Excel spreadsheet. Okay, I'm going to then click on the analysis tab here, and this is the next thing we can do with the data, and these are the reports. So when we click on we're doing a survey, so we're going to click on either Quick Survey or Advanced Survey. I'm going to click on Quick Survey, and we're going to start. That starts up the third module of the Remark Office software called Remark Quick Stats. And what it does is take us into the report generator, Remark Quick Stats program, and we can then click on Reports. These are all what I call one-click reports, and I'll show you why, because when you click here, it runs a report for you. Okay, so here is a condensed item analysis. it shows all of our questions one at a time with the possible responses, the frequencies, the percents, and a small bar graph here, and it also shows the mean. Now, the body of this report is more or less fixed. There are some things you can change about it. You can design a header. You can change the name of the report. You can design a complete custom header. You can pull certain things out. So I could pull out the frequency, and I could take the mean off of this. And you do that if you want to change a report by clicking on Tools and Report Properties. Okay, and here whatever report that you have pulled up, and we have the 204 Condensed Item Analysis report, it will bring up a list of those things you can change. So if I wanted to pull some of these things off of the form to make these a little simpler, I can tell it to remove the frequency and remove the mean. When I click OK, the software will rerun the report. It removed the frequency and removed the mean. Okay, so that is how you change properties. But there's a number of different reports that you can run. An item analysis graph report. With this report, you can change a lot about this report. You can change the graph. You can tell it I want one column. So if you want bigger graphs, you can do that. So I'm going to pull up the report properties, and we're going to change a couple of things. Let's scroll down here and see if I can find what I'm looking for. There's a lot of properties here. The header and the footer you can generally change quite a bit. We want to change the body a little bit. I'm going to tell it I only want one display column, which is going to make my graphs a lot bigger. And then I can tell it I want a different kind of graph. Now I have a 3D bar chart here, which happens to be one of my favorites, but I want to change it to a different kind of graph. So I click on graph type up here, and let's make it a 3D pie chart. So when I apply this and then click OK here, the report gets rerun with much bigger graphs, one question per column, and then the responses and percents, and it adds the mean in here. So you can see with this report you can change the graphs quite a bit. There's a number of different reports. A basic item analysis here, which gives you just the mean and your basic response frequencies. There's all kinds of different reports for survey and statistical analysis. Here is your item statistics report, and what you get here are your summary statistics, your mean, variance, standard deviation, and standard error. Your descriptive statistics that describe the shape of the bell curve, skewness, kurtosis, t-value, and mean absolute deviation. Percentiles and confidence intervals, 95%, 99%. Now with this report, you can't remove individual columns, but what you can do is remove groups. So if I wanted to take out the values and the percentiles, I could. Okay? And so there's a lot of different reports, and they give you all kinds of different information. There's a cross-tab report. There's a comparative item report. There are response reports. Here is where, this is the last report that I want to show you. I discussed getting a comments report, and here's how you do that. I want to click on response report by item, and I want to tell it to grab all those little pictures of the comments, and that is all I want to see on my report. So when I say run report, here's what happens. It pulls in all the little pictures of the comments so you can read what the comments are, and then you can either print or export this report to a PDF file. So what this gives you the ability to do is create a report with the comments on it, as opposed to having to flip through the forms to read the handwritten comments. Once you have a report, you can either print it, going to File and Print, or you can export it to a lot of different file types. You can export it to a PDF. You can also export it to an HTML file, a TIFF file, which is a graphics file, a text file, or a rich RTF file. If you want to open this report in Word, you could create an RTF file, so you can export it to different things. Often you want to export to a PDF file. And so we'll just call this our 2017 winter test comments. Okay. And it creates those files. There's one more thing I'd like to show you about the report generator. I'm going to rerun our condensed item analysis to start with here. Then I'm going to click on our data tab here, and what I want to show you is how to filter data. So if you want to pull a particular group out of your data, you can do that with the filter option. I'm going to click on filter right here, and this brings up the filter wizard. All we have to do to set up a filter is to click on the field. I'm going to use date as my field. I'm going to say equal, and then the software will automatically pull up all the values. I'm going to pull up the records with the date of 9/13/09, and all you have to do is click on filter data down here, and the software is telling us that it has filtered out 7 of the 14 records, and it's showing you those here. I can then click back on reports, and it will run the report that I had just run, that I had already run on those 7 records. Now you can select any of these reports and it will run them on just those 7 records. And up here it shows you what the filter is, date equals 09/13/09. So that's a very handy feature. I'm just going to mention down here this report batch. If you are running a number of reports on the same data set, you can batch those reports so that they get run automatically, and there is a way to automate that batch. There's a way to automate a great many of the procedures here in the Remark Office OMR software. So that is the end of this video. We've showed you how to create the scan template so that your forms can be scanned in the Remark Office software, how to scan forms, how to export the data, and create reports. If you've not seen the Concord Suite demo part 1, you might want to watch that. Thank you for watching our Concord Suite demo.